The next question is from Andrei. Initiators of Catalonia independence referendum have been sentenced in Spain. That caused protests, meetings, and clashes with police in Barcelona. What is the agenda behind the destabilization of Catalonia in Spain?
If people are hitting the streets, it is in someone's interest. There are no unmanaged processes, especially relating to the so-called social unrest. People need to be organized, transported to the location, and paid. Let's take a look at Ukraine. In 2014, morons were jumping up and down. They were saying, "We don't like this government. We will change it. We will jump in Maidan and we'll change this government." Then Poroshenko came to power. No one liked him, but no one was jumping. Why? There was no governing action for the organization of Poroshenko's toppling. It was clear to everybody, if one decides to hit the streets, if one would even dare to hit the streets, he would be shot by machine guns. All would be arrested, put in jail. Some may simply disappear. In other words, any mass gathering of people requires certain financing. Sources of financing are known. It is enough to put pressure on these financial levers, and voila, street unrests vanish like they never happened. Any street unrest has its organizers. To detect these organizers is a piece of cake. Let's look. In China, organizers were even painted. And not just organizers, the whole crowd was painted to be identified later. And all were let to continue, because the task was not completed. There is always a link between mass protests and certain interests in those protests within certain structures that conduct general governance of a country and a state. Yanukovych couldn't confront Maidan to the fullest for one simple reason. Maidan was organized by his inner circle that sabotaged all Yanukovych's decisions. Something similar is happening in Spain now. One has to understand a simple thing. We constantly talk about plans to create the European Islamic Caliphate in Europe. The plan was to demolish current European countries, restructure them, and create new nations, new languages, and new states as a result of foreign language, foreign race, foreign nation, mass migration. When Catalonia argues for leaving Spain and becoming an independent state, you have to be a dumb person. I am speaking about any administrator involved in the governance of same Catalonia, at least at the Spain state level, not to understand that Catalonia has no resources to succeed as a state. By leaving Spain and creating a sort of its own quote-unquote state, Catalonia won't become a state, but will destroy Spain, and Spain will become a feeding ground for migrants who will create a new state on this territory. During the Reconquista, Christian states recaptured the territory of Spain from Arabs. Now it will be re-Reconquista, the other way around, and not Arabs, but a multiracial, multi-language, multinational mass of people will wipe off this statehood. This is the scenario for destroying all European countries. Spain is just the first in line. Preparation started well in advance of current events. Mass migration has not wiped off all European countries yet for one reason, because perestroika and the following reformation of the USSR in Russia didn't go according to the plan. That made the global elite stop the wave of migration and all the rest. Also, some support was given to European countries to prolong their existence for the time being. But the launched disintegration processes have a delayed action nature. The population was fostered in a certain way. Certain structures were financed, and necessary information field was created, and all of this has to come to fruition, has to erupt. There are a lot of expectations about the Third World War lately. Why so? Everything was ready to start the Third World War in an open form in 2014, after MH17 was shot down. It was an analog of the Glavitz incident. Everything was in place, but this issue was straightened out through diplomatic channels. Now the question arose, what to do with all this military political potential geared toward this war? Let me give you an analogy. There is a speeding car and a cement wall in front of it, so the car has to stop. Moreover, the car should be managed in such a way that it would ride straight, won't roll over, won't slide to the side. But regardless of how good the braking skills of the driver are, this car will still be shaken to its core, and all passengers will be on top of each other. That very thing is happening all over the world today. All societies, all countries, all states convulse, rattle, and there is a possibility that processes would go out of control, everything would crash, and might lead to the possible start of World War III. But the start of World War III can happen only as an accident, because in reality potential towards the war is being discharged. Part of that potential was discharged through the Yellow Vests protests, part was discharged through Catalonia. This steam pressure must be let off, so the world is shaking. How successful will this discharging process be? How long and devastating is the shakedown going to be? Those are questions of practical implementation. But in any case, the processes that were prepared for the destruction of Spain as a state won't disappear in one day. They need to be discharged. That is taking place right now. At the same time, Spain is only an element of pan-European redesign, just one element of this reformation. That is why all sorts of extremists are heading to Spain to prepare and commit these violent acts.